don't it? Do you want to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection? Yay!
As a hobby, we are really obsessed with retro gaming right now. And I think a good question to ask ourselves is why, because a lot of retro games suck to play. They're hard and they're janky, and there is little to no quality of life.
And we also love collectibles and trinkets to have in our house and show off. And I think a lot of us are kind of feeling like modern games suck right now, too. A whole hobby is feeling this loss of charm and originality for the sake of following trends and meeting deadlines.
Look, there's one part of this discussion that's been talked about ad nauseum. COVID happened, we were all bored and needed new hobbies, and we needed serotonin. And I do think the habit is continuing because a lot of our favorite game series have been letting us down lately.
And another thing that I think is fueling the retro hobby is just that buying things is fun. And in a lot of ways, retro gaming is more affordable right now. With exceptions, like with series like Pokemon, and right now the 3DS is really big. You could probably buy a PS2 and a whole stack of really good games for the price of a Nintendo Switch and one game.
But I do think it's safe to say that the majority of people that are buying retro games right now are not playing them religiously. Most owners of retro consoles have a current gen console as well. I mean, they're collector's items. They're things that you maybe put a few hours into. More than likely, you're booting it up for some novelty and then putting it on display to be pulled out again to show off for some fellow gaming friends down the line. And it seems like if there's a company that understood that its old video game library was more of a novelty than some huge commodity, it was Konami. I guess you could say I'm somewhat of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Appreciator. I grew up in the 2000s with the 4Kids TV on Channel 4, and it's hard to not have some fond memories of it.
It's actually my favorite anime of all time. This was at a Dollar Tree in 2025. I screamed. I didn't scream, but I internally screamed because that's hilarious. And yes, I'm talking about the 4Kids dub. No, I have not watched it in Japanese and I will not do it. I am here to listen to Joey go, "Hey, I'm gonna roll these dice, you," in a New York accent. And I don't think I could give that up. And yes, I'm aware there are actually good anime out there, but like, I grew up, like, this is like my Gilmore Girls, okay? This was like my tweenhood. As a grown-up, I am here for the silliness and absurdity of an alternate universe where the Philadelphia Eagles actually played Magic the Gathering and we were just all really into it.
Go Birds!
I really can't speak on the card game. I do not know how to play the card game past knowing how to fusion summon, but we do have some pre-made decks that my husband and I keep around the house just to play for fun on game nights. Like a couple of Yu-Gi boomers. So you might be surprised to hear that I held off on buying this game for a little while after it came out. It's for the reasons I said earlier. I couldn't picture playing this card game on Game Boy controls as anything but a little bit jank. And I was right, it is a little bit jank.
But it does seem like Konami knew this, and they put in some much needed quality of life changes, like a rewind button. There's also the ability to just save wherever and pick up whenever. And I love that they treated this game almost like a little museum piece. You can pick up and play any of them at any time, and they have full uploaded versions of each game manual, and you can play in multiple languages. Other than that, these are just untouched, unedited ports of the games, aside from translating the Japan exclusives into other languages. Without a collection like this, I kind of feel like a lot of these games would have just fallen into almost complete obscurity. It's a very thoughtful love letter that also doubles as media preservation. The visuals in a lot of these titles are really, really charming, and there's actually an argument to be made that these look a lot better than the Yu-Gi-Oh game that we got on Switch, which just mostly contained still images. I loved seeing all my old favorite characters again, even as little pixels. Dude, I audibly shouted, "Roland!" which is probably not how they expected people to react. But we get to see Yugi and Kaiba and Joey on card sets all the time, okay? I haven't had Roland content since like 2016. Anyway, the game understands that this is something maybe only hardcore fans are gonna play in its entirety, and most casual fans are just gonna think it's neat. The quality of life and interface makes it really easy for you to jump between titles as much as you want.
Now, how is it as a game? Well, the games do suffer from Game Boy jankitis, like I predicted they probably would. They are very playable, but if you've been spoiled by any modern Yu-Gi-Oh game, you're not gonna prefer the Game Boy controls from a mechanical sense. I mean, there would be times where I'd be playing and a monster that was weaker than the monster I played would defeat my monster even though they didn't have any spell cards on the other side of the field, and it was just never explained. I have no idea why that happened. I played Reshif of Destruction, which was one of the Game Boy titles on here, the Game Boy Advance title. The ante rules were never explained to me. It was just yelling at me when I would try to ante this one card. It was like, you can't ante that. And I'm like, what am I allowed to ante? So, very playable, but there's the jank is there.
Speaking of, Reshif of Destruction was inexplicably hard. I thought maybe I was just being a dingus or something, but no. It turns out that you can't get past the first couple of main duels. Like, you genuinely cannot progress until you just absolutely grind by dueling people in town over and over and over again until you get better cards. And no, you can't just buy better cards in the game because you're not high enough level to use them. Maybe one day I'll come back to it because I was genuinely interested in the storyline that it was setting up. I love these characters, so any new original story involving them is going to be exciting to see. I loved watching Rebecca Hawkins just rip into Kaiba, and then she proceeded to kick my ass up and down the street because my cards were just that bad and I could not get better ones.
Now, the original stories are one of the best parts of this game. Some of the games, like the Sacred Cards, which is one of the Game Boy Advance titles, are based off of events from the show, but quite a few of these actually make up new stories and new characters, and I think it's really cool that they were willing to do that.
So I do know that the console Yu-Gi-Oh games from this era also got really weird and out there, including one that's based on the War of the Roses, and my Valentine is Yugi's mom? No, dude, like, I did not make that up. I was not playing Mad Libs. That was 100% real, and I feel like I need to play it. It feels like Konami started moving away from these kind of weird games containing stories past the 2010s. I mean, Legacy of the Duelist on Switch just lets you replay duels from the show, which is honestly really cool, but this collection made me hope for another RPG really soon, and just really appreciate the originality and effort that these game writers brought to the table back in the 90s and 2000s. So I personally chose to have the Sacred Cards be the game that I attempt to play all the way through. I do want to go back to Reshif someday, maybe more gradually, but I just can't see doing the grind long term, at least not until my career is a little bit less busy. The Game Boy titles are actually perfect for someone that just wants quick, fun matches once you get over some initial awkwardness figuring out the controls. But Wildcard, I also really enjoyed Monster Capsule. Like, maybe it's just because it literally looks like Game Freak made this. Like, low-key, like, did you ask Game Freak before you made your sprites look like this? But it's fun to get a playable glimpse at early Yu-Gi-Oh!, which did not originally start as a card game. I like this creepy AU where Kaiba gets possessed by the Millennium Ring and not Bakura. But even aside from that, this little game is fun. You have to use randomized monsters from the capsule machine, and you play what feels like virtual Onitama. So every monster can only attack in a certain pattern, and you need to strategize how you move so that you can maximize your opportunity to catch a rival monster on one of your attack squares, while also trying to avoid getting hit by theirs. The matches are quick, and this was a Japan-only release, so it was really cool to experience this hidden gem. Destiny Board Traveler is one of those titles that Like, this would have fallen into obscurity without this game. For real, like, we had Yu-Gi-Oh! Mario Party in the 2000s? What a weird, neat little idea that I have no idea how to play. I should have read the manual, but something tells me that this game was definitely intended for you to play via link cables with your friends. On your own, you're actually spending a lot of time just watching 3 CPUs take their turn that you kind of barely comprehend. Maybe this is the one where I would have appreciated a fast forward button, but this character lineup, oh my god, it's amazing.
Despite, I'm using this word a lot, despite the jank, I think a lot of players of the card game are going to appreciate the simplicity in these games the way I did. And I really don't want to sound like some kind of Gen 1er that's like, I don't like change! But being forced to play the card game in its semi-original form, actually in some ways before its original form for some of the Game Boy titles, you know, there's no confusing summoning mechanics. There's no literal paragraphs of text on the card. It feels nice. You just need strong monsters, good spells, good traps, and to play those things at the correct times. It's a little nice. It's nice to get back to a little bit of simplicity. I'm sorry. It kind of hits that perfect point of I'm not quite turning my brain off or anything, but this is a relaxing after-school activity. And I hope I don't come off like I think modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is bad or anything or not fun. I'm not dissing that at all. But I could picture someone that plays modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Still appreciating this kind of simpler return to form from time to time. Or if you were someone that played as a kid and you just want to dip your toes back in without having to learn what a pendulum is. You're not forced to think of some big-brained link summoning scheme. Like, you have an alligator, and the alligator has a sword, and it can beat things that have less than 1,500 attack points.
And maybe that is something we all miss about retro game. Keep revving that engine, buddy. Maybe that is something we all miss about retro gaming, too. Somehow things, despite the jank, were more creative and more simple at the same time. Instead, we're just kind of flooded with things like live service games that inundate you with new modes and new menus and new content without actually being worried about if the core of that content is very good. This more simple content was higher effort in a lot of ways. Gaming was still a relatively new place, and companies weren't religiously protective of their IPs or canon. They were just like, yeah, you know what? Make that AU alternate universe video game with these characters that people like, and make it weird. That's fine.
But like I mentioned earlier, I think that's another thing that's fun about retro gaming, is that it's fun to buy things. It's fun to drive around to flea markets and retro shops and secondhand stores and search for all your white whales and dig through the bins of Game Boy cartridges. It's fun to outbid somebody on eBay. Your old favorites become little trinkets that you keep around your house or on your entertainment center on display, but ready to be booted up if you do want to play them.
That, I think, is where Konami and Nintendo did get this wrong. The price. This is not a $50 game. You are not going to sink $50 worth of time into this. At least you probably won't. At the end of the day, it's a really nice port and museum-like piece, and it's not an actual collector's item to be held and displayed like an N64 cartridge is. I think they saw how much people were willing to pay for retro titles on eBay and thought they were giving us a steal at about $4 a game. But these are not beloved classics. These are not masterpieces for their time. Most of these titles got pretty mid and mid-leaning reviews. Good for some. But, like, Super Mario 3D All-Stars launched at $60. That's only $10 more than they're trying to charge for this. And I do think $30 to $40 is a more fair price. And I believe during the eShop sale, I actually saw this for as low as $25. If you're a fan, pick it up. But $50 is just way too much for a game whose appeal is largely, I just think it's neat. Wait for a sale. I kind of hate to say that because I'd love for Konami to port the console games and DS games too, but like, be for real with that $50 price tag. I hate to talk about money all the time on this channel. I feel like my past couple of videos have brought up money multiple times, but it's a pretty important issue to talk about right now in 2026. And if you're worried that this game won't go on sale again, I mean, my husband bought it for me on Black Friday for $30 at GameStop. And that was within the launch year, so you definitely wait for a sale. It's gonna happen again.
Retro gaming is taking off because it isn't just about nostalgia. Otherwise, this would have been done probably a few years ago. It's about appreciating the beauty and the simplicity of these little pixels and polygons. It's about having little trinkets in your house to show off and that hunt through the flea market for that one title that you just can't find. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection is a really simple novelty that fans of the show or fans of the card game are really going to enjoy having around and picking up from time to time, maybe banging out a simple card game on one of the Game Boy titles. I think the only drawback is that $50 price tag. Okay, what is everybody's retro gaming white whale? Because one of mine was this kind of bizarre real-time strategy Yu-Gi-Oh! GameCube game. I put a couple hours into it after I found it at our local store, finally, and it's kind of awful, but I'm really happy I have it. And I got to play as Kaiba. Who wouldn't pick to play as Kaiba? Let's be real. Now, my new target are those damn Hamtaro games. I can't find the Hamtaro games anywhere. I've gone, like, we go to stores a lot. I can't find them. Where is that stupid hamster? You guys let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time on Bridget's Never Played.
Wait a minute. It's alligator's sword? Like with an apostrophe? It's possessive? I thought it was alligator sword my entire life because of the New York accent. Like, Wayne Grayson, you and I have beef. Oh my god, this is a real product that they sell in Japan? This is like a real licensed product? It's so cute. Oh my god. I want it so bad. Why does this exist? It's so cute. Oh, you rat bastard. I am gonna find you one of these days.